What's up, people? I'm Carlo, welcome back, and today we're talking interviews, more specifically how to achieve certain interview style looks and shots using only one lens. Specifically, I have the Sigma 2470. It is a zoom lens which allows me to have multiple focal lengths with one lens. So for this one in particular, I went with my girlfriend to a vacant home that's under construction. There wasn't any furniture or light fixtures or anything, so it was a bit of a challenge to find interesting compositions, but I find that to be part of the fun in this. So I created two different looks for this interview test. The first, I framed my girlfriend on the left side of the frame and the window on the right. I set the camera up at three different distances, one at 8 feet, one at 6 feet, and one at 3 feet. Within all of those different distances, I shot one take of each focal length, one at 24, 28, 35, 50, and 70. So there is 5, 10, 15 takes of those three distances, just to show the relationship between focal length and distance between the subject and what each focal length does to the image and the subject's face or body in general. And for the second look for the interview, I framed my girlfriend more center on a smaller platform, and I didn't have much room to work with. And I also introduced a practical, which was a chandelier that was already built into the house, which added a nice tungsten look. And this one I did about 6 feet away, again at 24, 28, 35, 50, and 70 millimeters, just to show that if you are in a tight space doing an interview, this is what different focal lengths will look like if you don't have much room to work with. Again, I'm shooting on the Ursa Mini Pro, which is a Super 35 camera, so the 24 millimeter isn't a true 24, it's more like a 27-ish, but you get an idea of what you can work with depending on the distance you are from the subject. So yeah, let's get right into the break. Two interview styles that I shot, all ranging in focal lengths and distance. Now I'm going to kind of go over the lighting breakdown for both of the different scenes, as well as pick a few shots out of each of the different focal lengths and distance, and kind of just talk about what I like about some of the shots and what I don't like about some of the shots, all ranging and all really depending on the focal length. Like at 24 millimeters, what I like about it and what I don't. Maybe at 70 millimeters, what I like and what I don't. So stick around for that breakdown as well. So now we're in Photoshop, and I'm just going to do a quick lighting breakdown for this specific style. So she was about 4 feet from the wall right here. I incorporated the window right here. There was also another window back here. So what I did was, over here I had my Godox SL60 LED with a Fresnel attachment to it, kind of shining a light this way, which kind of gives this background the outline of the shades, which I kind of liked. I didn't have it initially, but I thought it added a bit of texture. So that's one light back here, the LED with the Fresnel attachment, kind of giving this light and creating some depth in the background. Over here I have my Godox with a softbox attachment right here. mimicking the window that's over on the right side, and the left kind of shining down on her face over here. So over here, I have a big black negative fill right here to kind of darken the left side of her right here, just to create a little bit more of some contrast. And then in the back corner over here, I have an orange LED right here, kind of just giving some hair light back here. This is the basic breakdown of this lighting. Alright, so this specific interview lighting setup was a little bit more simple than the last one. As you can see, we start off with this tungsten practical over here, this chandelier, just to give a nice hair light, and fills the background with a little bit more of a warmer tone. Right in front of her face, right over here, is a big window. I didn't use any extra key lights to emphasize it. I thought the window lighting was strong enough to give her a nice soft look, so I added I just used the window here to shine on her face right here, as well as over here I have a black negative fill kind of darkening the shadows over here, and that's pretty much the breakdown for this one. I have the 24mm here at 3 foot, and I also have the 35 at 6 foot. Both of them look pretty similar as far as depth or as far as distance goes and framing. But as you can see, the 24 versus 35, they do have some noticeable differences. You'll see in the 35, the image feels a little bit more flat. Her face doesn't look as pushed back. She in general is kind of moved forward in the frame, as well as the background is kind of pushed. But as you see, as I toggle between this and the 24, you'll notice the background kind of push back, and the back of her and the side of her face pushes back a little bit as well. See how the background kind of pushes back? Even though she is coming closer to the frame, you'll notice that the background is just pushing away from her, and the side of her face by her ears is kind of pushing back, and the 35mm kind of flattens her face a little bit. So depending on the style you're going for, I don't mind this look either. The 24 at a closer distance also does reveal a bit more of an intimacy as well. But depending on if you're trying to go for this kind of, I'd say this is more of a abstract look-ish, where this one is more traditional looking. Alright, so for this one I have the 35mm at 6 foot, and I have the 35mm at 8 foot. Obviously you could tell that the 6 foot is closer by 2 feet, but what does that actually mean? To me, it means that depending on the film and the story, getting a little closer to the subject adds a bit more of an intimacy feeling. You get a sense of the emotion of the subject. You just get closer, and you feel more connected with that person, whether instead of just being a little bit further away and then kind of zooming in, you're a lot closer to the subject from the top of the lens to the person's face, and that really does read to an audience that they feel connected to that person. But I do like, one of my favorite shots out of all of them that I've taken is probably this one, the 35mm at 6 foot. It was a good enough distance for her and I to still have a conversation, but it's not too close where I felt like I was kind of over top of her shooting. Granted, some scenes and some stories might require you to be a lot closer just for that ultimate feeling, but for me, I found that this had the perfect balance between kind of like the height between the head and the top of the frame, as well as kind of the underneath not showing too much over here, and then also over by the windows not revealing so much of the windows where it's distracting, but just enough to show where the light is coming from, as well as showing the detail in the back over here to create some depth. Even though you can't see anything that's going on over here, the negative fill is still creating that really nice shadow side over here. But as you can see, this 35mm compared to this one, you just feel more connected with that person, whereas this one is, you feel a bit more distant. So for setup number 2, I only placed the camera in one particular spot because the the flooring where I was at was very small. I could only move the camera so much. So right here I have the 35 millimeter, the 24, and the 50 millimeter here. Let's start with the 24. Obviously you'll see that this is the wide establishing interview shot. If you only have one lens and one camera to shoot, it really depends on the style you're going for. If you're going to be using it mostly for a voiceover, or if you're going to be using it actually in the video. If you're going to be using this shot in the video, maybe you don't go with the super wide shot. Again though, it depends on the story. If you're telling a story that's super emotional and you need that close-up, that emotion to really drive the story, I wouldn't go with a wider shot. Maybe look at the 35 millimeter here, where you could still see where she is in relation to the camera. Like you could see that there is the staircase pole over here, the chandelier is still over here. You could still see what's going on, but you get a sense that you're kind of closer to the subject. Again, you feel a little bit more connected. And then again, if you wanted to get even tighter at 50 millimeters here, this to me is almost a little too tight for what I want, only because it doesn't allow me to see kind of where else she is placed, where she, like, what is the location she's in. Granted, you could see that this is a chandelier. There's a stair railing right here where you could probably tell that this might be a staircase, but in another instance, if you only have one lens and one camera, for me, I would probably go with the 35 millimeter here, where it does establish a wide shot. But if you shoot in say 4K and you want to export in 1080, you do have some room to crop in as well. But if you start here at 50, there's no cropping out and zooming out. So that's a food for thought as well. So that's it for today. Hopefully you found something useful. Maybe you could take some of this knowledge that you learned today and use it for your shoots and projects as well. Hit the like, comment, subscribe button. Would really mean a lot. Let me know what you think of this video, and I will see you next time.